Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you, Miss Moore?
I'm doing okay. How are you, Commissioner Roberts?
I'm pretty good. I can't complain.
That's good. I like the curls.
Why, thank you. Sometimes they can be a little too curly. I'm like, fall. You fall already. Hi, Miss
Oh,
Mc.
it's perfect.
Thank you, Miss Moore. Good morning, Mr. McBride.
Morning, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Very good, thanks.
Congratulations for your interim role.
Yes, it's exciting actually.
That's always good to hear. This is an exciting time. You have exciting information to talk about.
Okay. I was just trying to test my share function so that I won't have a mishap like I had last time.
It's absolutely fine, but I appreciate you taking the due diligence to check that out. I appreciate it. And Miss
Right.
Moore, did you get the updated schedule agenda for today?
Yes, I'm hoping that it's the one posted to Board Docs.
Okay.
I'm just going to verify. 1 second.
It is. It is.
Okay, perfect.
Good morning, Commissioner Sally.
Good morning. How's it going?
Good. Welcome to the committee.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
You and I have to get together, spend some time to go over all things operation.
Yes, I am excited. I'll reach out and schedule some time.
Absolutely. Were you able to review everything that's on the agenda for today? And did you get the updated agenda?
Yes. Yeah, I saw what Jessica had sent out.
Got it.
Are we supposed to use Teams when we do this remotely, or are we supposed to use the board doc login? I didn't know.
Oh no, Teams is fine.
Okay, all right. I just wasn't sure.
Normally, I just go straight to Teams and click on that link.
Okay. Awesome.
I needed streamline.
I'm
Well,
just
it's
getting
okay.
my sea legs underneath me somehow, some way.
Yeah, it's a lot with the onboarding, but we're happy to have you.
Thank you. Thanks for making me feel so welcome.
We'll get started in a bit. We're waiting on Commissioners Bondima and Reed, and then we'll get started.
Okay.
Good morning, Commissioner Reed. We have a new committee member, Commissioner Sally.
Yeah, we've been in a meeting together. Yeah.
How are you?
He asked great questions, so Allison better be on her toes.
I didn't sleep very well last night because I am a little worried that I'm not on my toes. So,
Oh,
hopefully.
it was because of something you ate. It wasn't because of this meeting.
No, I will try to be on my toes. But yes, I got to meet with Commissioner Sally already. So we had a great meeting.
So how's everything at the city? That's where your son is, right?
No, now I don't have any children in the system. They're graduated now. They're in
Where's he?
college. They're both at College Park. One's a senior, one's a freshman. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
No, but city's happy because they got additional funds through Kerwin. So I think they're pretty happy right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I told Cindy Harcum I'm going to run my kids through there one more time because now they have the resources they should have had. I don't know if Tanisha's, oh no, Tanisha's child was my child's age, so I don't think she has kids there either right now.
Yeah, no, yeah, Jasmine, she's now at Towson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we missed it, Tanisha. We missed the money.
We did miss it, but I think we were fortunate.
We were. We had a great, my kids had a fantastic experience there. So.
You
Absolutely.
guys talking like you guys going to get a check or something.
Yeah, but it's like, it's just the programming kids should have had all along. But I mean, Cindy did a marvelous job. And so it was a great experience for my kid. Really fabulous. Couldn't ask for more. So.
Yeah,
Yeah.
likewise, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not into promotions. I'm letting you know that now. Promotions, promotional materials. Yeah. Uh-huh. Okay.
Promotional materials. That's what you're not into?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Ms. Moore, have you heard from Commissioner Bondima?
No, not yet, but I definitely can circle back with her. You guys
Okay.
can get started and I'll check in on her.
Got it. Thank you so much. So we will get started. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for attending the March 15th, 2022 operations meeting. Before we get started, I want to note that there was an update to today's agenda. So today, the committee will receive the following presentations: the 21st Century Schools Annual Report Update and the Educator Recruitment and Readiness Update. We also will review the procurement agenda. The school police update that was scheduled for today was removed and will be rescheduled for a future meeting. Ms. Moore stepped away, so when she comes back, I will ask her about public comment. But outside of that, we can get started with the first presentation of the day, which is the 21st Century School Annual Report Update. Welcome, Mr. McBride.
Well, thank you. It's very good to be here. I am going to attempt to share my screen, so bear with me, please. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we're good.
Okay, can you see the entire presentation?
Yes, it looks like it's in presentation mode.
Okay, very good. I'm just going to test the forward here. Today's presentation provides highlights of the 85-page 2021 21st Century Annual Program Report, which was developed by City Schools, the IAC, MSA, and the City of Baltimore. After the report is approved by all partners, it is distributed to the Board of Public Works and to the Maryland State Legislature in accordance with the 2013 Construction and Revitalization Act. Excuse me. And this is an overview of the subjects that we will cover today. The 21st Century program aligns with the board strategic priorities number 3 and 4, in that the program engages all stakeholders in the planning, design, and delivery of modern facilities to support successful teaching and learning. Before I proceed, I want to make a note that all of the schools that you see, both the exteriors and the interiors, are schools that were delivered by the 21st Century program. All the students that you see are Baltimore City Public Schools, so there are no stock photos here. And please feel free to ask questions about anything that you see. To provide a high-level summary, the program to date has completed 24 buildings. Over 1,000 Baltimore City residents were hired, and we've participated in more than 65 outreach events, 14 of which were organized by MSA. The program has also processed over 270 procurements and task orders. We've issued contracts awards totaling over $1 billion, and we've achieved 32.15 MBE percentage participation, and that represents over $300 million in contract awards. We've implemented an OCIP that resulted in a $9.75 million savings, and due to efficient management and favorable bond activity, the program saved over $6 million to be used for future projects. To provide a general update on the status of the projects, shown here is a list of the 11 Plan Year 1 schools that were completed and opened from 2017 through 2021. This slide and the following slide lists the 17 Year 2 schools, including 13 schools that were completed and opened, 3 schools currently under construction, and 1 school for which a feasibility study was recently completed. Work on Plan Year 2 schools spans from 2017 through 2024. To provide a general update on other facets of the program, this, by the way, is Arlington Elementary. This was the old gym, and we converted it to a media center. Currently, Montebello, Highlandtown, and Cross Country are in swing locations. Montebello and Highlandtown will remain in swing until their new buildings open in January of 2023. Commodore John Rogers will swing December 2022 and will remain in swing until its new building opens in 2024. 20 yellow buses provide student transportation to and from swing locations. Every effort is made to comply with the latest city schools COVID-related precautions while transporting students and staff. Academic planning. Academics continue this work with schools to reimagine teaching and learning in 21st century facilities. That work included work with school-based staff to identify academic focus areas, development of processes and procedures to support and deliver academic programs, and creating strategies for integration and expansion, This work was achieved through visioning and planning sessions with schools, communities, partners, and other stakeholders. Across the portfolio, academics developed 27 school-based academic programs and related professional learning opportunities. An essential component of 21st Century is to assist the district with reaching its targeted district-wide utilization rate for school year 2020 through 2021. The district committed to a rate of 86% during school year 2021. The district exceeded that rate and achieved 87%. During 2021, the district surplused the following buildings listed here. That includes March, Hamilton, Guilford, Maury, and Sharp-Leadenhall. To recap the program management section of the report, 24 schools have opened, $1.2 billion in contracts were awarded, over 1,000 Baltimore City residents were hired. The program exceeded its MBA participation. To date, 65 plus outreach activities were delivered, and through cost and management efficiencies, over $6 million was saved and reserved for future projects. Over 850 participants joined 48 virtual community meetings for updates on project phases. Meetings included a broad spectrum of participants, from students to families to elected officials, all of which were encouraged to provide feedback on various phases of the project. For co-located schools, end-user centered activities were provided to assist students and families with co-locations. This information here was provided by the Department of Housing and Community Development's INSPIRE program. During 2021, INSPIRE continued its work with residents of Park Heights to improve housing in the immediate vicinity of Arlington and Pimlico Elementary Middle. Related to that work, 46 homeowners received grants for home improvements. INSPIRE also engaged students in the community in other neighborhood improvement projects, including a mural on York Road, new walking paths at the Lake Clifton site, and improvements to the Ambassador Theater. Housing adopted one improvement plan for 2021 with 12 plans scheduled for review and adoption in 2022. The program provided, we actually presented 5 hybrid, virtual, and in-person school dedications during 2021. We also published 3 newsletters during 2021 to showcase schools, communities, and program events. The communications team worked with professional photographers and videographers to document and archive the important work of the 21st Century program. The program's social media footprint continued to steadily grow on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Revenues were higher than the budget. The higher revenues were directly related to the true-up of bottle tax revenues, table game proceeds, and facility rentals. Receipt of BGE rebates and larger than projected investment income also contribute to the higher revenues. Expenses through 2021 were significantly under budget. Contractual services were under budget because of a very aggressive forecasting in projected construction cost. Fixed charges were higher than expected because of additional debt service payments. City Schools is required to update and maintain a comprehensive maintenance plan to outline its annual strategy for maintaining school facilities, to provide building maintenance plans for that demonstrate progress using the IAC matrices, provide improvement highlights and initiatives to enhance efficiency in services. The program continues to work with PMs to obtain project-specific information for the comprehensive maintenance program. And I open to any comments or questions.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you so much, Mr. McBride, for the presentation. I'd like to open the floor for my colleagues. Commissioner Reed.
I think you guys did a really good job in the kit. I guess page 20 was the part about the maintenance plan update.
Yes.
And I think in goals, I think we, as this committee, we'd like to see a lot more of that in terms of how that shakes out and what you plan to do.
Sure.
And also the final outcomes. I guess another thing came up for me, which was important, was page 13.
Mm-hmm.
Page 13, you talked about capacity utilization. And I guess the average you hope to get for the system is 86% for the 21st century schools. You got 87, which is good. But I guess my question is the flip side. 87 is the median. What schools concern you guys that are below what you consider a good threshold?
You want me to jump in on that, Michael?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like it's more like a planning department question. So because it was a goal for 21st century for the reason that in order to get authorization to leverage these bonds from the state legislature, we had to identify a goal. But a lot of the work lies in the facilities planning office and the portfolio work that Angela does. So that's why, a lot of these buildings, as you know, Commissioner Reed absorbed students from schools that were closing to try to get those utilization rates up and to get students access to these buildings. And these are fabulous buildings. They're so much better than our other buildings. They're good in terms of the building structure. They're good in terms of the programming because Don Shirey does work with them to improve the programming. We work on the principal selection process. So we really make sure these are 21st century experiences in every way. But that work about trying to get to that 87% to your point really encompasses all the schools in the district, including the non-21st century schools, and a lot of the lower ones with the lower percentages are high schools. So we have, there are high schools who have really low utilization rates. We have closed some high schools, but that has been one of the challenges is the high schools. Elementary schools generally are above the utilization rate. The target, they're on the higher end, and it's some of the high schools that are on the lower. And the high schools are large, Commissioner Reed, and then they tend to be a little bit lower utilization, so they bring that average down a little bit.
Are there any red flags we should be looking at or that you guys are worried about?
Well, it's interesting. I think, again, this is why we do the portfolio work every year. Part of it, again, the portfolio work is not just about meeting a utilization target. It's about providing good quality programming to students. And so the reason the utilization rate is related to that, the reason it's important to have a critical mass of students in a school is so that you can afford the kind of programming that students deserve. And so that's why, that's one of the reasons why we've combined schools. Again, high schools are a challenge. High schools are difficult. We need to make sure that there's good representation of high schools around the city that students can access easily. And there's different programming, as you know, in different high schools. So it's a little bit challenging to make sure that we have the good distribution of high schools and the good offering of programming and that they're accessible to students and meet those utilization targets. It's just a little bit trickier. And also our high school buildings are very expensive to add on to. So if you have a good program, like in the case of New Era, we know that we're closing that school at the end of next year. The reason we didn't close it this year is because there's no space for those students to go in Ben Franklin. We need to add space on Ben Franklin in order to have space to absorb those students. And so that's expensive in a high school. It takes time. So that's some of the challenges is in the high school area is just making sure that there's good programming and space for students. In the high school plan that, is the next phase of the 21st century work, we are adding adding seats to city, adding seats to poly to provide more access in those schools. But it is, a constant challenge to make sure that we have the right high school offerings that are robust enough, have robust enough offerings and in the right locations.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm probably prattling on too much, but one last thing I will say. Also, the city ranges a lot in terms of across the city. So like in the Southeast, you see a lot of overcrowding. Our Southeast is our biggest growing area. So we have a lot of newcomer families coming to the Southeast. And so we do see overcrowding there, and then other parts of the city less so. So there's also just kind of, even in the elementary schools, there's areas that are more crowded and less crowded.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sally, did you have any questions or remarks?
None for today. I think this is well done presentation, so thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Moore, was Commissioner Bondima able to join us? I don't think so.
No, she has not joined.
Got it. Okay. So Commissioner Reed touched on a couple of the points that I had noted here, but something I wanted to circle back to was utilization. So of the 24 of the 28 schools of the actual 21st century school program, where are we with in terms of just that cohort of buildings in terms of utilization?
You're on mute, Michael. Oh, good.
Yeah, I was saying, are you going to respond to that?
Yeah, that one I don't know that off the top of my head, but I see Lynette piping and she might know that answer.
Yeah, so what we can do is we can provide the utilization report. One of the things I just want to flag is that when you have brand new schools, a lot of times when the population is moving out of swing space, sometimes when they move into swing space, they've lost some of their enrollment. And so when they're coming back into the building, and also, as Allison is saying, is that we also are consolidating schools. So those numbers are going to shift and they're going to change. And so a lot of times we ask for people to look at the trend for the utilization, because when they come back into the new schools, the numbers may be lower. And then as the next year comes in, more families are coming back to their neighborhood school too. So we have some situations where schools are at capacity, sometimes a little bit above, and then sometimes a little lower. But we can definitely provide you a report for all of the schools. And I would say that it's important to do a 3-year trend of it so that you get the adjustments that are happening as consolidations are happening. Children are returning back to their neighborhood schools, and then also children are just returning back to the schools because they might have went elsewhere when the school swang to its swing space.
Thank you so much for that, Chief Washington. And so the reason why I asked the question is, even if we take a look back at this year's portfolio season, where we had one of the school communities, Bernard Harris, that would have essentially fed into Johnson Square and then into a 21st century building, Hartford Heights. With that building not closing, that 21st century school still needs to reach its utilization number. Mm-hmm. And so I think about what targeted strategies as an alternative or as a supplemental strategy or plan is being used to help these 21st century schools reach their targeted utilization numbers.
Yeah, so that you're right, and that was Hartford Heights is a good example, and I know your own child goes there, and it's a great principal and a great program there, and it's an example like Chief Washington mentioned, where during the construction they did lose enrollment, and then it takes a while to build back up. And the 100% project schools, of which that is one, they really do a good job recruiting students, and so I do think it'll grow over time. But the part of the rationale for the recommendation on Dr. Bernard Harris was because whenever we can, consistently throughout these programs and throughout all 24 where we've cut the ribbons, if there's another school in the area that's maybe underutilized that we could that is not really serving students well, if we could put more of those students into a 21st century program beyond what the original plan was. And again, most of them were already absorbing students from a closing school. But if we can get more students in there, we do, because it's got the better facility, and it's got a great principal. Usually we always pick work on selecting principals. And so we try to do that. Principal Cromartie, we'll certainly reach out to her and talk about how to continue to attract families. But that was part of the rationale for that recommendation, was that it would have helped to fill up that great program and great school.
But that just goes back to my initial question of that's just one of 23 other schools that are actualized now that have to consider what the utilization numbers are and of their communities. And so, as we are always talking about small schools and just the operating challenges that small schools have and getting ahead of it and bringing in community for those discussions, I just always think about what strategies, okay, if we didn't close this school, where do the kids come from? And what's the larger plan so that they can maximize the resources and opportunity of these newly erected 21st century school buildings? Because that is a better opportunity, but also giving credit to the school communities that exist at the smaller schools. I'm sorry, Commissioner Sally, I see your hand.
After your point is concluded, I didn't want to interrupt.
I'm sorry, you broke up.
Yeah, I wanted to wait until after your point was concluded.
Okay.
So one of the questions I had was a little bit about just the community outreach and engagement strategies when we're thinking about these schools, but also the swing schools. In terms of the neighborhood associations, have they been specifically targeted in outreach to explain both the swing school status, but also like what these 21st century schools look like?
Yeah, there's a very robust community engagement program. We always actually tailor the strategies to the community. We understand and appreciate the community's values and aspirations, and we work with them to include them in the process from feasibility study all the way through construction.
Yes, and Michael's exactly right, and I think there's an incredible amount of meeting about the design of the building, about what throughout the various stages to keep up to date on the schedule, as well as as we talked about, Don Shirey on Michael's staff works with the schools to think about what programming should be in the school, and so the school community if it's two school communities coming together, both school communities will work together to talk about what programming they want to see there. If there's two schools coming together, we'll work on a principal selection process, including the two schools, so they'll identify the principal that they want to serve their school. Sometimes it's a naming process. So, again, when two schools are coming together, we don't want it to feel as if there's a closing school and then a receiving school. We want these two schools to truly merge. And so we will work on things like, is there a new name that the school wants to pick together that represents their shared vision of their school? So we'll do naming work. And so there's and then to your point on swing space, there's a lot of conversation about the swing space and where the swing space will be. With all that, we do lose a lot of families in swing space. It's a challenge, and the swing space is, not as nice as the final building because we're trying to say, it's more akin to their regular school, but they have to be transported there, and so we do lose families in that swing space process. But to Chief Washington's point, they do generally come back, and usually beyond. Then we have our enrollment goes up beyond eventually.
Got it. Okay. And I'm also, my comment also about the swing space, I think, is thinking about just the recognition that we have students who are coming from different neighborhoods, and ensuring that like these receiving neighborhoods are creating the cultural welcomeness and openness to having these students in these swing spaces temporarily.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, and then sometimes that has been a challenge. Sometimes we've worked with the receiving community and have community meetings like Michael. I think Renee has done a lot of work with Forest Park community about arrival and dismissal times, which were kind of disruptive to or caused challenges with some of the arrival and dismissal or the activities going on in that community. So examples like that are where there is a community engagement team that's just for 21st century, because there is so much engagement that needs to happen on all all steps of the process, to your point, Commissioner Sally.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And I just want to highlight really quickly, Mr. McBride, could you just bring up these slides? Because I just wanted to give it a little bit more breadth because these were such
Sure.
notable highlights of this presentation for me.
Mhm.
Slide number 15, kudos, hats off to your team and everybody that were a part of these achievements, as well as, yeah, here. Slide 19, kudos again. Wanted to highlight those financial achievements coming in under budget. That is always notable. This is always notable. I think that was just those two. I wanted to highlight those two. So again, kudos to your team and everybody that has been a part of getting us to the 24 completed buildings with 4 more to go. But thank you so much, Mr. McBride, and everyone that was a part of this discussion.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Can I just quickly say thanks to Michael, who stepped in as interim and has been serving as interim. And I think, Michael, you've been here almost for the length of the program.
That's correct.
Yeah, so Michael is one of the longest standing members of the program. So just wanted to say kudos to him for stepping in and for the long time role he's played with this program.
You missed my congratulatory message. That was the first thing I said to him.
Oh, sorry. I got a phone call, so I'm sorry. I didn't mean to duplicate you, but yeah. Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
We can prepare for the Educator, Recruitment, and Readiness presentation.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah Deal, and I'm the Acting Human Capital Officer, and I'll be presenting today alongside a couple of my colleagues, Monica Logan, Interim Executive Director of Talent and Organizational Development, and then Tracy Frazier and Diane Sellers, Directors of Education Pipelines and Induction and Recruitment and Selection, respectively, are here to present as well. Next slide. All right, so today's Educator, Recruitment, and Readiness update will first focus on sharing context for teacher recruitment and our overarching strategy more broadly, before turning to how we build, support, and sustain our early career leaders. This focus on robust, varied pathways to enter teaching and support for our instructional staff aligns primarily with board priority number 1. Next slide. So as we all know, the teaching profession has changed fairly considerably over the last several years. And so I certainly won't read all of these statistics, but I did think it important to step back and frame today's conversation by considering some statistics that focus on the national teacher supply. So to highlight just one point, as you can see, the first bullet, so nationally, there were more than 1/3 fewer students enrolling in teacher preparation programs in 2018 than there were in 2010. So that's 940,000 down to 604,000. There was also a 28% decline in students completing teacher preparation programs. So teacher supply and demand is complicated, and the national teacher supply only tells part of the story. So for a more accurate picture, you would certainly need to look at local teacher supply and demand by content area. But nevertheless, the data, I think, is a telling and very interesting frame. Said in a different way, if every graduate from a selective college entered the teaching profession this fall, there still wouldn't be enough teachers to fill all of the vacant positions. Next slide. Teacher labor markets are hyper-local, with most teachers electing to teach within 15 miles of their hometowns. So the same Center for American Progress data that we saw on the previous slide reported that in Maryland specifically, enrollment in teacher preparation programs declined by 41%. And furthermore, we know that this is a very unique time in our history in terms of the Great Reset, the Great Resignation, and multiple studies have shown that Annual satisfaction survey data has shown a sharp increase in dissatisfaction since the beginning of COVID. So in Baltimore and across the country, educators really are sort of considering their career options in a way that they hadn't before. And, you know, all of this underscores the importance of a recent human capital presentation that we made to the Operations Committee around staff wellness, really needing our educators to feel whole and well so that they are able to continue to support our students. Next slide. So Maryland is a state that prepares half the number of new teachers needed annually. And so we really do employ a variety of strategies to recruit a diverse pool of high quality candidates. So this chart shows total demand, so teacher hires plus teacher vacancies from 2014 to 2021. And as you can see, last year in 2021, we needed to hire nearly 700 teachers to be fully staffed. And this year, given the Kerwin funding and additional funds that some of our schools received, we anticipate that number could be even higher. So I really cannot underscore enough our reliance on and commitment to a variety of partnerships and vendors to ensure that our vacancy numbers continue to stay as low as possible. And now I'm going to pass it over to Diane, who's going to delve into teacher recruitment and our strategies. Diane?
Good morning, everyone. So as Sarah mentioned, each year we employ a variety of strategies to recruit a large, diverse pool of teacher candidates to fill our vacancies, and I just wanted to highlight some of them. So we re-engage past candidates who have applied in the past. We also post positions on several external job sites. We get a list each year of paras, subs, and early literacy paras who have a bachelor's degree so that we can reach out to them. We work with communications to post vacancies and recruitment events on social media. We attend several external career fairs this year for the first time in 2 years. Some of them are in person. We're attending 27 between February and April. We prioritize recruiting student interns. We have external partnerships with colleges and universities, as well as with the mayor's office and the Office of Unemployment. We partner with 3 Maryland-approved alternative preparation program vendors. We host webinars about opportunities with city schools. We conduct on-site and virtual interviews on college campuses. We actively recruit in Puerto Rico and have done so for 4 years. We've hired international teachers on the J-1 visa. Our recruitment associates host content-specific information sessions for prospects. We hire veteran city schools teachers to serve as teacher ambassadors to keep candidates warm and engaged throughout the process so they stay in the pool as long as possible. And we offer central contracts immediately to outstanding candidates, guaranteeing a position with city schools even before a school placement is known, to get as many teachers to commit to the district as early as possible. And all of these strategies are essential to ensuring that school leaders have a diverse, high-quality pool of candidates to interview and hire. Today, I'm going to highlight a few of these critical strategies: student interns, Maryland-approved alternative preparation program vendors, J-1 teachers, and Puerto Rico recruitment. So our teacher interns are an important source of new teachers to city schools, and we value their experiences that they've had in our schools. And we seek to provide them with an expedited hiring process so they will continue with us as teachers. On the left, you can see the colleges and universities that we partner with that are our PDS partners for teacher interns. And on the right, you can see the timeline for hiring them as quickly as possible. City Schools has partnered with alternative route vendors for nearly 30 years. Our 3 current partners are BCTR, Teach for America, and Urban Teachers. They are all Maryland-approved alternative preparation programs. And I'm going to highlight one staple of each of the programs. So first, starting with BCTR, next slide, please. In 2019, BCTR launched a Black Educator of Excellence cohort, or BEEC, which provides an affinity space for Black residents, resulting in an increased number of Black residents who start teaching and are retained at their schools. And this slide shows what that cohort provides. During the 2021 pre-service training, 97% of BEEC members reported that being a part of the cohort made a positive difference in their pre-service training experience. And this is a particularly important investment for BCTR, as over 50% of their cohort over the past 3 years has identified as Black or African American, and almost 60% have identified as a person of color. Last summer, Teach for America Baltimore launched its first ever localized pre-service summer practicum in Baltimore. Core members provided direct instruction for city school students at Callaway Elementary, Lakeland Elementary Middle, Moravia Park Elementary, Ben Franklin High School, and City Neighbors High School. Historically, TFA has held a 5-week training for their core members in Philadelphia. Throughout the summer, core members had a one-to-one program coach who conducted consistent observations, as well as had the opportunity to attend racial affinity spaces facilitated by trained TFA staff members. TFA is looking forward to operating their 2022 summer practicum here in Baltimore and is in conversations now with school site partners. And Urban Teachers currently has 76 residents who will be ready to hire as first-year teachers starting next school year. They have over 300 teachers who are currently teaching in Baltimore City across 88 schools. Recruitment is underway for the incoming residents. As you may recall, UT has a 1-year residency program before they become teachers, and they are recruiting right now for their residents. 37 have signed on so far to join UT Baltimore and counting, and 50% of those who have signed on already identify as Black or Latinx. And their end of the year principal survey in the school year 2021 revealed that more than 9 out of 10 first-year teachers were rated as prepared by their principals. The 2021 teachers from alternate route vendors came from 35 states and the District of Columbia. They represent 151 colleges and universities, 126 of which we do not actively recruit from. And this significantly extends our reach and brings teachers to our district who would not otherwise join us. These programs are able to add capacity through staffing and resources to provide additional support and development to their teachers. Each program has sought funding outside of district funding that will allow them to diversify and retain teachers who identify as Black or people of color. There are teachers that we have in our district who say that they choose these programs because of the coaching and development they provide. They realize how complex the teaching profession is and would not enter the teaching profession without it. And so for many of those teachers, it is a deciding factor. These programs are seeking funding, again, outside of our district, that is geared towards supplementing the development of teachers, especially in high-need schools where they tend to be placed and listed there under onboarding and professional development. You can see some of the topics of their onboarding. All 3 vendors have been thought partners in a broader conversation about strategies on teacher retention, effectiveness, and as Sarah mentioned, wellness. And each program offers a variety of incentives and opportunities for their teachers to stay a 3rd year and beyond. Last year, we partnered with 2 organizations to hire international teachers on a J-1 visa. The J-1 visa is a cultural exchange visa that is valid for 3 to 5 years, and all of the teachers are certified in their home countries and have at least 3 years of teaching experience. Next slide. These graphs show 5 high-need content areas from this school year. And as you can see, teachers coming from alternate route vendors and J1 programs accounted for a significant percentage of incoming teachers in ESOL, math, chemistry, physics, and special education. I want to make an additional point about math for a second. The 3R plan discusses offering advanced math courses for students in grades 6 through 8. This will require us to hire even more math teachers in our district, which will not be possible without alternate route vendors and J1 teachers. City schools began recruiting in Puerto Rico in 2019. Pictured there is Jonathan, who was a teacher recruited that year and who is now an assistant principal at Baltimore International Academy. So not only is this an important pipeline to hire teachers, it is also a pipeline for school leaders who are bilingual so that we are meeting the diverse needs of our students and communities. Recruitment in Puerto Rico, as well as hiring J1 teachers, are also important strategies that will be used to hire teachers to fill positions in our district's dual language programs, which will expand into traditional schools beginning next school year. So these are just 4 of the many strategies used by the recruitment team to build the pool of high quality candidates. All of the strategies are critical, and if any of the strategies, including those that I highlighted today, are missing, we will not be able to meet our goals, and students will not have the teachers that they need and deserve.
Tracy, it's Sarah. You're on mute. There you go. Ah, there you go.
Thank you. Good morning, Operations Committee and everyone in attendance. My name is Tracy Frazier, and I'll be talking about the Educator pipelines and induction. Thank you, Diane, for the segue. Diane spoke about the teacher recruitment and teacher support strategies. I'll be updating you on how we support and develop our early career leaders. So last time when we presented, we talked about the content of our programming. This time we want to talk more about the numbers so you can see who's in our pipeline and how we're growing. So of course, we support our early career assistant principals in our induction programming and our early career principals. Early career are for the folks who are in their first, second, and third year of service. In the center, you see we have our pipeline. Our pipeline are programs that support leaders who aspire to be principals. So these programs are to prepare them to be principal ready within the year. So let's go through induction. According to the Wallace Foundation, high-performing school districts should have high-quality pre-service preparation for their leaders. We do that through our induction programming. We have 3 cohorts this year. Last year we had 2, so we're increasing it to serve the first 3 years. We have 27 first-year principals this year. Last year we had 21. You can see on the chart year 2, 16 and 22, and then our year 3s, we have 9. So as you can, this is something that we're tracking in terms of data because it's like what happened to the second year APs to their third year. So some folks do apply to become a part of our pipeline and move into principalship. This is the type of support that we provide. We provide onboarding, which is our summer orientation. We have our triad meetings with our ILEDs, our principals, and our candidates. We have our monthly cohort meetings, which are our talent development Tuesdays. So we support them on the first, second, and third Tuesdays of the month. Coaching, office hours, expert panels. So we have a wealth of resources to support our leaders in the district. This is our pipeline. So we're extremely proud about this. Last year we had 17 leaders in our pipeline. So there were 9 residents and new leaders. We had 8 aspiring principals in our internal cohort. This year we have 20 total. So we still have our new leaders. We have 6 fellows who are in our internal program supported by new leaders. And then we've also have a partnership with the HBCU Fellowship. This is also a new leaders program, but it targets leaders of color. And it's a partnership with Clark Atlanta University and Morehouse. And then we have 2 high-performing APs who have become a part of the Promising Principals cohort. As far as the Wallace Foundation, we spoke about the induction support. Wallace also speaks to principal support. They should receive coaching and mentoring in those first few years. So let's take a look at our principal induction. These are the numbers from last year to this year. Our numbers are pretty steady. So this year we have a large number of first year principals. We are predicting that we may have a large number for next year. And then we have our second and third year. You can see the EPI symbol there. That means that our internal senior principal coach is coaching our first year principals, and then we partner with BKL and Associates, who are supporting our second and third year principals through coaching and mentoring. These are all of the partners. One partnership that I hadn't mentioned before is the Truist Leadership Institute. They have a Mastering Leadership Dynamics program. So all of our assistant principals and our principals have a session with them bi-monthly, and the focus is largely on personal leadership and identifying their leadership skill, all of those soft skills that come with being a leader in any school and district. So, our pipeline to self-sufficiency. We have partners, we spend money and dollars on partners, but ultimately we want to build our internal capacity to develop our leaders and develop our programming. So this is what the trajectory looks like for us to become self-sufficient. It's our gradual release model. So next year, 22-23, we will continue with the way program is operating this year. We have our new leaders pipeline and we have our internal pipeline. All of those candidates who are in those pipelines are being developed and supported through new leaders coaching. The following year, we want to go back to our model in which Educator Pipelines and Induction runs their own Principals Institute. So this is a preparation program for sitting APs. They will not leave their schools, but they will continue to be developed and be principal ready by the end of the year. And we'll also have new leaders for another year. The third year, 24-25, is when we predict to be self-sufficient. And in order to do this, we will need more coaches. So our assumption that we are making is in alleviating some of those programs, and internalizing them, we'll be able to fund some of those dollars into acquiring more coaches. Right now, with all of the leaders we support, from assistant principals to principals, we have one internal coach. I'm serving in two roles as a coach and director of the program, but we need more coaches. And research shows that coaching is a true way to change practice, leadership practice. So that's our gradual release model. And there we have it.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I will open the floor for my colleagues if you have questions. Commissioner Reed, I see you on. Do you have any questions? You're muted.
Sorry. Page 8, you guys talked about use of interns. How do you use interns? I mean, what's the level of engagement with your staff?
Do you mean the student interns that I mentioned?
Yes.
The student interns, those are students who are in teaching programs in Maryland at one of these universities that are listed on the left. And so they are becoming certified teachers. They are seniors, in some cases juniors, who are in teacher education programs. And a part of their certification requirement to graduate through that program is that they are student teaching. So that's what they call them in Maryland. They call them student interns. So they're completing their student teaching requirement in our district.
So we have like a embedded program in a process, and
yes, it's required through MSDE. So the PDS process, or Professional Development School process, is a requirement of MSDE. So when someone is a student in college and they're majoring in education and they're graduating with teacher certification, in all states that I'm aware of, they have to complete a certain number of hours of student teaching, where they're in the classroom with a supervising teacher, observing them, giving them feedback, etc. And they typically do that junior year and senior year. In senior year, it's typically a full year or a full semester. And so, again, on the left shows the colleges and universities that we have PDS partnerships with, and they have student interns that come into some of our schools. Also with the PDS partnership, the relationship is actually between the college and university and the particular school. So for example, UMBC students go to Lakeland. The partnership is actually with UMBC and Lakeland. We actually have someone here who helps to kind of monitor these things, and they actually live on the team with Monica and Tracy, but the relationship is not with the district as a whole. It's really with the school, between the two schools, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Sally.
So I really appreciate this presentation. I was curious a little bit more about, as you guys are starting to look at the retention side of the house, what data and metrics are you looking at in terms of culture and climate in school buildings, and that support that may need to be provided to early educators who are recruited into the system?
Yeah, I can certainly start, and maybe folks can jump in if they have more to add. So, retention is a topic that really straddles sort of multiple departments. It straddles human capital. It also straddles sort of the school's office in terms of the ILEDs and the principals. So I can talk about a couple of things and then just fully acknowledge that we have a lot more work to do in terms of looking at retention by school level. So one thing I will say, just so that folks know, is that every year we kick off the district declaration of intent, and that is essentially asking all of our current educators what their plans are for next year, whether they intend to continue with city schools, to retire or resign. That sort of early snapshot of data is slated to close, I think, March 18th. And we know, because in the state of Maryland, tenured teachers have until July 15th to resign, which is very late. And that's a challenge because as we continue to fill vacancies, additional educators continue to resign. But that is certainly an early snapshot. I would also say we are going to be bringing you board letters, likely at the next operations committee, to renew the contracts for our 3 alt-route programs. And as part of reviewing program efficacy, we are working with the Office of OAA in terms of student achievement data, but we do look at evaluation data. We look at teacher retention data specifically for those programs. And we also look at diversity data as we're considering those programs. The last thing I would just share is that the human capital partner team, so essentially the staffing team, the team that supports principals directly with their human capital concerns like labor relations and staffing, we are, for the first time, essentially doing, in concert with the ILEDs, a pilot program where we are pulling together for a very small cohort of schools a bunch of human capital data points so that we can take a look at them in the collective and figure out how to partner with the school's office in a way that really is more transformative than what we've been able to do to date. And I say that to say that I do know that one of the sort of data points there is about retention data by school. Finally, we will have conversations or share information with principals about having stay conversations with their top talent, right? Because oftentimes just having a conversation with somebody that you really want to stay really does make a difference. So, I share all those to share that there are sort of strategies in the works, and I do think that there is more work to be done in terms of school by school and taking a look at sort of what is a strategy, a more holistic strategy for that particular school.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And I think a little bit about like those success factors for our young educators or our new educators coming into the system in terms of what do we understand about our current schools, how well they're performing, and I'm going to use performance in the broadest set of metrics. The broadest sense is understanding like what do those schools offer? How do we, on the front end of human capital practices, when we're talking about placement, especially with our alt route programs, utilizing that data, understanding like who the school leaders are, what the supports are in place to ensure that we're doing all we can to ensure that we have longevity in the profession and in our system as a whole. I'd be curious like what the strategy might look like holistically in the years to come.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And it really does matter, right? Because in the state of Maryland, teachers obtain tenure sort of after their third year, which is essentially when they're able to voluntarily transfer to another school. And so while we do have mutual consent here where employees and principals identify the best fit for them, I do think sort of working more with our principals in terms of their own school-specific recruitment strategies and sort of highlighting what makes their school unique, and working with all of our teachers to sort of look around, be thoughtful around where that first placement is, might also make a difference. So I certainly appreciate that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sally, thank you for lifting that point, because something that bubbled up for me during the presentation was also, and I just want to verify this first because I think this is not a thing, but I want to verify it before I say it. We currently do not have a formal process for exit interviews.
Yeah, that is a really good question. So we do exit interviews for folks who ask, but it is also my understanding, and this is something that we need to address and change. I don't believe that we have a holistic strategy to obtain exit interview information from all of our employees at this time.
So perhaps that's something as we're looking at, I think you all named like 700 vacancies that we currently have, and then Kerwin is expecting us to onboard a huge percentage of teachers over the next several years around diving into some of that quantitative and qualitative information we could be getting from teachers that are leaving the system. And I even think that same process should be extended to student interns and why they're opting not to stay with the system after doing their internships. And something that was actually raised in a BTU meeting that Commissioners McFadden and I had was around opportunities for our students to explore going into the teaching pipeline, and how are we being creative in creating a pathway, even if it's a CTE pipeline, for them to explore going into paraeducating as a transition into the larger 4-year degree route. So that was something, I'm not sure if you all had considered it, but also I wanted to oh, I'm sorry, did you want to speak to that, Ms. Dill?
No, I was just going to say, certainly considered it, certainly something that we would like to explore in the more immediate term, sure.
Got it. Something that I wanted to ask about was around the J1 visa, international teacher. I cannot speak today. The J1 international teachers. I know that last year, because of COVID, we were experiencing some COVID-related logistical issues with getting those teachers placed. And even when they were placed, it was a bit delayed. And so that was a bit of a stress on some of our school leaders in the individual school communities. So my first part would be, is that something that school leaders should be anticipating this year? Or also, on the brighter side, has that issue been kind of fixed so that we won't actually have the delayed onboarding of those teachers?
Sure. So I can answer that question. That has been resolved. And the way that we resolved that is we started earlier this year. So the reason there was a delay last year is because we actually started later, because we weren't sure, were we going to be able to go to the Philippines to conduct interviews in person, because Philippines had opened their borders and they had closed it. And so by the time we actually found out that we were not going to be able to go and we had to shift to conducting interviews of these candidates virtually, the interviews didn't happen until I think May or June. And then there were delays on top of that with visa appointments in their home country, getting here and finding out that the Social Security Administration had changed their process literally that day, requiring quarantine, et cetera. So we've already interviewed the teachers and they're actually already in the pool. The interviews happened in January this year, so months before it happened last year. So they are already in the pool where principals are able to contact them to interview them. Another thing that I will mention, because it's come up a little bit, is the term placement. We typically don't centrally place new teachers. So we only centrally place new teachers in very rare situations. And usually it's people who have committed, and the reason we're centrally placing them or our staffing team is centrally placing them is because it is coming down to get really close to the school year and they still haven't found a placement yet. And they typically will address those later vacancies that Sarah mentioned because the MSD mandated deadline for tenured teachers to resign is July 15th. So all of that is to say is that the hiring decision is between the school leader and the candidate. And so that's why, as Sarah mentioned, something that will be really important is schools really being able to sell themselves to candidates in a way that is that highlights the strengths of the school and why a candidate should opt into being there. And also, I wanted to bring that up because our international teachers largely were not placed centrally. They already had been selected by a school leader. So the delay was not on the placement end. The delay was actually in the logistics, which again has been resolved. You're on mute.
Yeah, there you go. I appreciate that. I will say, even in my experience, I've seen a lot of individual school communities over the last month or so advertise their vacancies for teachers. And so that kind of pulls together the full picture for me that school communities are also responsible for the recruitment of their individual staffing challenges as well as central. But I've seen on a very frontline stage, if you will, individual school communities advertising for the vacancies that they have in their buildings. So thank you for that, Ms. Sellers. If there are no more questions, all hearts and minds are clear. Thank you so much for the presentation.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
We can prepare to review the procurement agenda.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, Ms. Matthews.
Good morning. My name is Shabray Matthews, Purchasing Manager with the Office. So Commissioner Roberts, would you like me to go through each separately, or do you want to go directly to questions?
Yes, we typically read the agenda item number, the request, well, not the full request, just kind of a synopsis of what the request is, the term amount, and the dollar amount.
Okay, all right. So the first item is 13.01 for catering services. The Chief Financial Officer requests the board's approval to contract with Biddle Street Catering and Events, Black Tie Caterers, Jay's Restaurant Group, Inc., Tuscany Deli and Catering, and Exquisite Catering, a total of 5 vendors, to provide catering services to the district. The estimated annual amount is $750,000, and the contract term is May 15th, 2022 through May 14th, 2025.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions? No.
None here.
No. Okay.
I know. You said no, Commissioner Sally? Got it. I know if Commissioner Bondima was here, she would want, for the record, just a brief overview of how we handle the multi-vendor procurements, just in terms of I forgot how she would usually state this, but when we approve procurements with multiple vendors, how those vendors are selected within the larger procurement. If you could just touch on that for the record, please.
Since we have 5 vendors, how is the annual amount split amongst the vendors?
Yes. Thank you for answering in a much more eloquent way.
Okay, so the $750,000 is allocated based on historical usage. So we do an allocation spreadsheet. Once the board approves the procurement, we look at if Biddle Street during the last contract, did 50% of the entire amount. So we'll allocate based on historic information. And of course, we have to, based on the demand and the use of the district, we have to reallocate those requirements based on the need.
Got it. And just so I'm sorry, Ms. Matthews, and just so I'm clear, Exquisite Catering was the only vendor listed within this procurement that had an actual certification, a MWBE certification.
I believe. Let's see. Catering service. Yes, that is correct. They are MWBE certified.
So will we get any credit from them?
Oh, actually, I need to let me double check that before I give you a response. I will check with the MWEB department and get back to you with a response.
Got it.
Because I do not know that off the top of my head.
Thank you, Mr. Sally. Commissioner Sally.
And just so I'm clear, that for these specific catering contracts, these are used at both the central district level and at the school level?
Yes, that's correct. This is a district-wide contract.
Okay, and are these used specifically for what are they fulfilling for catering?
What are they provide? Professional development, events at schools. The board office may use the catering companies as well. So a wide number of services for the district.
Okay, and when they provide these services to the district, are they billing for time and materials? Meaning, are they for each event, or are they getting a specific guaranteed minimum from the district?
Yeah, they submit when they submitted their proposals, they submitted pricing based on items.
Okay.
And I believe there is a particular discount for each vendor that was also specified.
Okay.
Discounts up to 10% of the cost of.
So we don't have a minimum spend with each one of these vendors, it is based upon per event. I'm going to use the word event. So say there's an event at school A, they need to provide catering for 20 individuals. So we are only billed for those 20 individuals. There's not a minimum spend that the district is required to do for each one of these vendors?
Oh, no, there is no. So just for clarification, minimum spend per order, or do you mean in general out of the 750,000?
Yeah. So I'm sorry, at the higher level, at the contract, are we required to give, for example?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, we're not.
Got it. Okay. Those are my questions.
Okay. Chief Yoder.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Roberts. Chris Doherty, CFO. This procurement item is actually done through the CFO's office, not because we we eat more or do more catering, but as a central activity that we do for the rest of the district. And just to add to what Ms. Matthews has said, this is actually done to make things quite easy for the schools. So there's this hefty amount of money of up to $750,000 that's drawn down, as required, right? Like it's not if that's not what gets spent, that's not what gets spent. But to your question, Commissioner Sally, it's so that the schools have a built-in easy way to do a lunch for 25 people without them having to reinvent the wheel. And then the fact that there are these five different entities, we see that schools like people, if they go with one and they liked it, they will often continue to go with that one. And because it's fun, to have food at an event like this, I know some schools will go to one for one type of food and one for another type of food, and so it's just done to be convenient and helpful, and as I think Ms. Matthews said, we get good discounts. So the buying power of the district really helps, because if someone calls up and does a one-off, they're not going to get the best prices. They might not even hypothetically get the best treatment, but with these big contracts that we've done, and we did them through an RFP, so a competitive request for proposal, everyone puts their best foot forward, the best prices forward, and we make sure that we get at least a 10% discount off what the person off the street would get. So, and of course, we get feedback from the schools, so that in the event that I haven't heard this is the case, but if there was an event that one of the vendors let us down during the course of the period, that would be very relevant information, and they may not be included in the next one. So hopefully you can all sample from the five providers at various events. I just wanted to add that to Ms. Matthews' comments.
Thank you so much for that, Chief Doherty. I think we are good on questions on this procurement. We can move on to the next.
Okay, next is 5.01, the Sherwin-Williams Company. The Chief Operating Officer requests the board's approval to contract with the Sherwin-Williams Company to provide paint and painting supplies to city schools on an as-needed basis. The estimated annual contract amount is $100,000, and the contract term is March 16th, 2022 through March 15th, 2025, with 1 2-year renewal option.
Are there any questions on this item? Not see any. Thank you so much, Ms. Matthews. We can move forward.
Okay. Next is 15.02 for outdoor furniture and accessories. The Chief Operating Officer requests the board's approval to contract with Duron Inc., Effective Communication Strategies LLC, H-Cone International Impacts LLC, and Peabody Office Furniture Corp., a total of 4 vendors to provide outdoor furniture and accessories at various city schools buildings on an as-needed basis. The estimated annual contract amount is $1,297,872. And the contract term is March 23rd, 2022 through March 22nd, 2025, with 1 2-year renewal options. And just a note about this particular item, the operations department has requested to change the amount listed in this letter to $1,730,496 due to an increase in funding. And that change will be reflected in the March 22nd board agenda. So just a note.
So there'll be an updated board letter?
Yeah, so when we send the agenda over to the board office, that amount will be changed to the 1.7.
1.7, okay. Are there any questions for this item? Mr. Reed?
None here. Thank you.
All right, we can move forward.
Okay, next is 15.03, automatic vehicle location systems. The Chief Operating Officer requests the board's approval to pay the final year of the contract with Teletrack Admin, U.S. Ltd. For city schools owned vehicles and contractor owned buses and taxis. The requested amount is $337,881.79. The contract term is July 26, 2017 through April 7th, 2018, with 3 one-year renewal options through April 7th, 2021.
Thank you, Ms. Matthews. Is Ms. Jacinta with us? I think she is the author of this letter. Good morning, Robin. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. I just need a holistic picture of how this works.
Mm-hmm.
Could you just walk me through what this actually is?
Yes. So these are GPS units on our buses. When we first started the contract, it was for buses only, and then we extended it to add taxi cabs. However, we did find another source for GPS technology that was cheaper than this company. So we're making that transition.
Got it. I saw you pop on too, Jacinta. Ms. Jacinta. Was there anything else you wanted to add to this?
Nope. Marshall's he just popped up first. That's all. he said it well.
Okay, Commissioner Reed, your question.
Yeah, I was just just give us a quick hard and fast in terms of how this dynamic makes us more effective and efficient. I mean, I think of Amazon when I think of this, FedEx, those kind of companies.
Yeah.
But I guess the question is, how does this make us more efficient, more effective, more useful to families by having this GPS?
So it makes us more efficient and more useful for families by having a source where we can look at either live data or we can go back in history to investigate either claims or things that may or may not have happened, anywhere from speeding to accident claims. Somebody say a bus hit my car on the corner of Pratt and Lombard. I didn't get the bus number, but here's the time and date that it happened. So those sorts of things.
And I would say that we use it most for the allegation that a student was not picked up. So if a parent calls to say that Jacinta was not picked up, we can go and look at the GPS and identify if that bus actually stopped at the house, and it will engage once the door is open. It will let us know that the bus was there, waited for 3 minutes, and moved on as to whether it never came or not. So it helps us with that probably on a daily basis.
So this doesn't help us pick up the kids later so they can be on the corner less? Does it do anything like that makes it the route shorter for the kids, or the time they have to stand in the corner shorter, or the time they have to be on the bus shorter? Does it do anything?
No, no, because that would be like operationally. So we don't have like the real time to send out like a text to a parent to say, for example, it's an accident on Calvert Street, so your bus is going to be delayed by 15 minutes. And so the new contractor or vendor that we're working with would have that added feature of a like, hey, where's the bus type feature? And so that's why we are looking to end our relationship with Navman and seeking to get a GPS contractor that would enable us to at least send a text to a parent or family member to say that one, the bus is not operating, or that it is operating late. And I must add, when you asked for us to partner with Amazon, we have been working with Amazon, and although they have not necessarily been able to assist us, but they have been able to be good partners as to how we could think. But so I just wanted to note that.
Oh, good.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
It's still preliminary, but I do have hopes that they can create some type of solution that'll benefit city schools.
Thanks.
I just have one follow-up question around the actual implementation of it. Mm-hmm. Will this GPS iteration, will it be able to be used by the contractual services that we use for transportation?
Yes.
Yes.
Our contractors, okay, got it. Because I know that's where the bulk of our services are provided through. And so if they're able to use it, like we'll actually see some substantive change. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Ms. Matthews, I'm sorry, was someone talking? Oh, okay. Ms. Matthews, we can move on to the next one.
Okay, is that me or?
Oh, yep, it's on you.
Oh, okay, all right. I thought maybe I froze, sorry about that. Okay, so next up is 18.01, Carney, Callahan, Bressler, Bennett and Scher LLP. The chief legal officer requests the board's approval to increase the contract with Carney, Callahan, Bressler, Bennett and Scher by from $105,000 to $225,000 to provide advice, counsel, and legal support. The initial contract began August 11th, 2021, and will expire on December 31st, 2022, or when all funds have been expended.
Does anyone have any questions?
So that's essentially a no-cost extension. Is that what that is?
Yes.
It's an increase to the actual contract.
Oh, got it. There's additional funds going in. Got it. Until expenditure. Sorry, I missed that point.
I saw you pop on really quickly, Chief Simmons. Since I saw you pop on, I was just gonna ask. I'm sorry. This is essentially just to safeguard any additional work that may be anticipated or not.
Right. So this is if we need it to be prepared, if we have a special education matter or other matter where we need assistance, especially as we're going through some transition in staffing in my office, to have backup in terms of outside counsel.
And are we reaching the cap as right now?
So we have used resources. We had a number of special ed due process proceedings before administrative law judges, which we provide updates on, and so that was the primary use.
Got it. Commissioner Sally, anything else? Good. Okay. Thank you so much, Chief Sivan. Ms. Matthews, we can move forward.
Okay, next up is 19.01, promotional items. The Executive Director of Whole Child Services and Support requests the board's approval to increase and extend the existing contract with Positive Promotions, Inc., Promotions Unlimited, Inc., Rudolph's Office and Computer Supply, Inc., and Trey PML, Inc., a total of 4 vendors, to continue to provide various promotional items. The board is requested to increase the annual contract amount for the contract from $2 million annually to $2,805,000 annually, and extend the contract term through July 31st, 2022.
To my colleagues, any questions?
Yes. This is Vernon Reed. I was pretty on the fence when we asked to increase it to $2 million when that came across operations the last time. And I think in terms of promote attendance, promote school climate and culture, I don't want to spend my money for that. I don't want to spend the district money for that. My hope is that the teachers and the administrators and the social workers and the psychologists work with the kids to improve the climate. And we can spend the $2 million or $800,000 for something tangible. My colleagues, I'm not for this. And I was dubious when it was $2 million. I definitely don't want to do it when it's 2.8. I think money's finite, and I don't want to spend it on the kumbaya type approach. Thank you.
Ms. Matthews, thank you for that, Mr. Commissioner Reed. Is Ms. Warren on? Dr. Warren, is she on?
She's not, but I'm here. My name's Angela Holland. I'm manager of the Whole Child Department. And so part of this request was also inclusive of incentives for vaccination. We received a large grant, and we're able to, provide incentives to kids that were vaccinated. So that also encompasses some of the money that is being requested as far as the extension of the contract.
Thank you so much for joining us, Ms. Holland.
Absolutely.
So I have two questions, one of which on the board letter under the evidence of effectiveness, I know that when this came up before, the board had asked to see just some more indicators around where that correlation existed of the promotional items, school pride, the positive behaviors, and where that correlation to the actual promotional items showed success. But also to your point around grant funding, if you could, or if this department, the author of this letter could provide the actual disaggregated dollars out from gen operating from grant funding would be really helpful as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I apologize because that was kind of before me. So I'm catching up, but I can definitely make sure we parse that out so you have a clear picture of what we're really spending and how it connects to school pride and all those other things.
Yes, because I mirror the same sentiments as Commissioner Reed. Just under $3 million on promotional items. I in good faith could not vote favorably on this item. I think providing additional context to the correlation between the items listed under evidence of effectiveness around positive behaviors and around school pride and things that add to the holistic student learning experience would be helpful. But that is a significant amount of money being spent on novelty items. And so that is something that every time this one item, this procurement comes before the board, there is such robust conversation around it because it's a lot of money. So if you could provide those items, that would be helpful. But I too would mirror the same sentiments that I don't anticipate a favorable vote on this at this time. Commissioner Sally?
Yeah, I equally share some concerns as my board colleagues around this dollar amount. I would be interested in understanding, especially at a board or larger board presentation, what is the strategy as a whole that the district is pursuing around positive incentives or positive behaviors, and where else may we look to other than just financial resources to be able to provide those incentives for students and children in the district.
No, and I appreciate the feedback. It's a fair enough conversation, and I'll do my due diligence on my end to try and get you guys some more information of provide a whole picture.
Yeah, we can certainly take that back. And the other just flag I want is that a lot, and correct me if I'm wrong, Angela, but a lot of the spending is individual school spending. So these are individual schools who, as part of their behavior plans, are because if individual schools are spending money, the collective amount is the amount that the board has to approve once it gets above $50,000. So this is not as if the district is buying all these resources and then shipping that out to schools. Individual schools each may have their own items that they're procuring in order to support culture and climate in schools as part of their behavior management strategies. So Cora, you can correct me if I'm wrong about that.
No, you're 100% right. It's the big picture plan, but the schools are doing the purchasing based on things they've already established, like during the year as far as to support culture and climate. So it's a big number, and I know, but it is based on school level investment.
Are you?
Go ahead, Commissioner Sally, and then I'll
really briefly. Are you requiring those schools to submit a plan that you guys then therefore in central are? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. I'm sorry. I shook my head. I thought I was on mute. Sorry. Listening.
No. So yeah, I don't know. Is it you're looking? Are there safeguards and guardrails, or are there certain things that you're asking for from schools to say, what is your plan this year that allows you to understand how this aggregate number gets to you, so that school A is not expending too much.
Yeah. So there.
Sally, the point I was going to touch on is, okay, if Commissioner Sally's school is spending $200,000 on promotional items, but my school, we don't ever buy anything. How is that breakout happening that we have to continuously raise the threshold for the budget of promotional items? And not all, we don't really know. I mean, because I've been to some schools and they give me items thank you for visiting, and I get a cute little bag and a shirt, versus other schools that don't have any materials. So I'm not sure continuously raising the dollar amount shows a larger reach versus maximizing the dollars and ensuring that individual school communities are equally using this as a tool.
So again, and so we can certainly try to get some context of that to the extent that we have it. I think that's a question for Chris of how much we would be able to tell between schools. But it's the kinds of activities that would be things like for their PBIS plan, that if students have, consistent attendance, that maybe they earn something, or there might be, maybe it's a mug with the school's logo on it, or it could be uniform type items that, that have a special like logo or something identifying them, and this is student of the month or something. But Cora, you've been wanting to get in, and you probably have better context than I in terms of the kinds of things that schools use. You're on mute, Cora. It's funny, it doesn't show that you're on mute, but we can't hear you.
Can't hear you, Cora.
Okay.
Maybe now.
No. Maybe hang up, Cora, and call back quickly, and we'll get to you right away. Does that work, Madam Board Chair?
No, that's what I just asked her to do. We were saying at the same time.
Yeah.
In the meantime, Commissioner Sally.
Oh, that's it.
Oh, your hand was up.
Oh, sorry. These tools are just, they're little itty bitty.
They are.
Okay, so I'm going back to the first question. When I forget who specifically asked on it about the certain incentive programs and how we can show data tied to how the usage is. As recent as yesterday, Mergenthaler High School, they did a food truck program where they had various food trucks out, and it was free to the students instead of utilizing the school cafeteria funds for attendance. It was attendance and grade measures. So those students who had a certain percentage of attendance, grade percentage increases, or just grade point average in general, they were able to participate in the food truck event that was in the parking lot. And it was a great number of students. So it wasn't particularly a thing where people were being not allowed to come out or things like that. I don't think that there was a tally like, oh, no, you can't come or you can come. But however, there was a broad message relayed to the students about why the food truck was there and what the purpose of it was. So that's one particular item that more so is speaking to how we're using it as an incentive, and it's something different. And that was actually presented by the students as a suggestion. And because we did have that increase in funding, they were able to actually produce that program. And that was just yesterday.
Commissioner Sally, did you have any further? Okay. You're muted.
One thing that I wonder if we can do and would potentially be helpful is that part of the reason, so the board is approving an upper limit because one of the challenges that's hard for us to predict is each school, again, 155 different orgs, may be buying things from promotional activity. What's it called? Promotional partners? What's it called? Sorry.
Promotional items.
Promotional items. Mm-hmm. And so it's hard for us to predict what the total will be because we don't know exactly how much each school wants. And what can be challenging is if a school is planning for a promotional, maybe a student of the month recognition or an end of quarter celebration or something, if the contract hits a limit, then and we have to wait to go back to the board and the school can't order, that can be a challenge. So those upper limits are intended to give some space so that we don't hit that. And it's a little bit difficult across 155 orgs to know exactly what the upper limit is. But I don't know, Shabray, maybe the degree to which we can indicate in the past how close we came to the upper limit, because I think, the upper limit is there like as an upper limit. It doesn't mean they've always hit the upper limit. So I don't know if that would be helpful to board members too.
Allison, I think go ahead, Ms. Matthews, I'll go over you.
I was going to say, I don't have the exact number, but I know that we wanted to add a little wiggle room because of the end of the school year, where schools are going to be utilizing the contract. And then also we received a grant, I believe it was $385,000. So we needed to add capacity for that as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think for the points that myself, Commissioner Reed, and Commissioner Sally have made is that when we received the board letter, we thought that those considerations had already been embedded around the individual school communities and their needs. And so for us, when we don't see the disaggregated gen operating versus grant funding, we just see one pot of money. And so to continuously raise the roof of, if you will, the capacity of the budget doesn't say for us that we're seeing any real movement from the students at all. It's just a continuous movement in requests for more money. And so I get your point around it would be disruptive potentially for school communities as we move into the end of the year season. But again, when we see these board letters come to us, we are interpreting and processing them as if school communities and district staff have already taken these considerations into account. Not that the threshold being lifted is now including another season of the school season. We thought $2 million raised it to consider that, and in these other
again. So there's a little tea leaf reading here, Commissioner Roberts, because we don't know the schools, have different ways that they could incentivize behavior. For example, they could do what Cora was talking about with food trucks. That wouldn't be under this particular contract, but that may be one way that they would incentivize behavior. I don't think it would be under this particular contract, but there are different ways they might incentivize behavior. It is difficult for us to predict exactly how much they're going to spend under this contract versus another one. And so, yet the resources have to be available within a reasonable level so that schools can make decisions. They too put money aside in OTPS for different activities like promotional. And so we have a general sense of what they put aside for promotional, but some of that may be in this contract, some of it might be in a food vendor contract, some of it might be in another contract. So that's just a little bit of the challenge of having 155 sites. We can't tell you exactly what each school is planning to do to the nickel this year on things that they're going to order from this particular vendor, or to Cora's point, a food vendor, food truck vendor. We have to kind of have contracts available and track them and have a sense of where we are in spending against them, which is, I think, why Shabrake came back, is because we were moving up in terms of the available resources in this particular contract as schools were spending it. ILEDs and school staff, they do meet with schools to talk about PBIS or their various incentive programs and the ways that they're incentivizing students. And there's a range of them, but they don't get down to, are you buying, how much from this vendor versus this vendor versus this vendor. So there's a little bit of, predicting a range. Again, when schools do their budget, for example, in those budget collaboratives we just did, they put money in other than staff, what is OTPS? Other than
personnel,
personnel services. Sorry, I had a little mind meld. So they put it there, but it doesn't get into the level of, and I want this much for this vendor and this much for this vendor. So we have to have some contracts that are available for them to make their choices based on what they think motivates their staff. So as Cora mentions, it may be a food vendor. There are students for whom that is a really good incentive, and that's really going to motivate them to get vaccinated or to maybe complete, to improve their attendance. But for some others, it might make sense that there's something out of this vendor where it makes sense. It's a little bit hard at the central level to completely predict what schools are identifying. And just like anybody else, they also need kind of a range of options. They might, when they're planning for an end of the quarter party, they want to look at different vendors and may make choices at that moment about what kinds of incentives they think would make sense for their students given whatever milestone they just passed. So I'm not trying to make it too hazy for you. I'm just saying there is a little bit of, we're a large organization with 155 different sites who all yes, have their budgets approved and they have a certain amount they put away for OTPS, but it's not down to how much is in it for promotional incentive for this particular vendor versus a food truck vendor versus another. So you have to have kind of a range of options for them to make those decisions on, and then yes, be held accountable for how they're making those decisions and how they're implementing it as part of their climate plan. To your point, Commissioner Reed, remember they all worked on climate plans this year, and those climate plans probably did identify things like, you know, ways that they're implementing their PBIS or their other performance programs, most of which, if we've been in schools, many of those plans have kind of reward systems that if you have classes have perfect attendance, get a popcorn party, or classes who do particularly well on a test, or you know, or some behavior you know, some behavior metric, then they get you know, again, to Cora's point, a food truck or something. So there's different ways that we incentivize students. This is one of them, and I hear you about the concern about it being too much, and I hear that, and I think we should try to think about, we'll go back and think about ways that we try to delineate more what this looks like and try to make it more clear for you. But I'm also just flagging that there's a little bit of it's a little bit hard because we're not, you are predicting the future, that the level of specificity of what each school is going to do is a little bit hard to predict at this point.
So for the sake of time, we do have an additional procurement, but one other item that I like follow up on is the historical information that we do have, or the individual school community or dollars, or I'm not particularly sure how you want to pull it together, but the historical information is used to influence the dollar amount that's been requested. But I, at this time, cannot say that I would vote favorably on this item. Ms. Matthews, we can move forward with the last item on the agenda.
Okay, the last item is 20.01 Himmelrich, Inc. The Chief Communication and Community Engagement Officer requests the board's approval of a contract with Himmelrich, Inc. to support a targeted communication and marketing campaign. The estimated total contract amount is $72,000, and the contract term is March 23rd, 2022 through June 30th, 2022.
Opening the floor to my colleagues. Any questions?
None here. Thank you.
Commissioner Sally?
No, I think I'm good with this.
I just would like, for a matter of record, if I'm not sure who drafted this, Mr. Riley. Mr. Riley, could you just, very similar to the transportation department, could you just walk us through what this procurement is asking for?
Yeah, hello everybody. I'm Andre Riley, the Executive Director of Communications. The work with Himmelrich supports our Progress Report initiative. Again, it's a targeted marketing effort that does two things. First, it ensures that our elected officials and our civic leaders get information that they need to make decisions that are favorable to the district, or they support outcomes that we're trying to achieve. And it does that by giving them information about our outcomes and our good news. So if you want to ask us, let's say, about our gifted and talented learning program, we're sending you information every month on that. We're giving you information so you're armed with what you need to make great decisions, again, that hopefully support the work of the district. A secondary aspect of the Progress Report plan is to act on our primary audiences. Those are our students, our staff members, and our families. And what we do with them is more of an informational piece. Again, what is the district doing that helps your student either get closer to high school graduation or to a career, college and or a career? So we're sharing information about those positive outcomes, those things that we're doing, essentially telling the district story. That's been a big push of our leadership, especially in this environment where we've been more just informational. We're telling you to do this. We're giving you information to do things that are, life or death. We want to go back to telling our story. And to do that, Himmelrich goes out. We send them to different parts of the district. They collect our information and they draft stories that go on our Progress Report hub. But more importantly, we use that same information and we send it out to the elected officials through our different platforms. We send it out to our families and to our general audiences, through our social media channels, through our weekly newsletters and other means. So basically, they're just helping us to create the content while we're a little short-staffed. But by the time we hire more staff members, it'll become more of an internal task again in our ability to generate that content. So that's the high level version, but I'm willing to go as deeply as you need to make certain I'm answering your questions.
I do not, but Commissioner Sally, I see your hand.
Yeah, just very briefly, I would assume that what they're doing is also amplifying existing materials that the state puts out that tells a little bit of the story around, like, for example, the Maryland Progress, the student report cards that come out, or the school report cards that come out. They're amplifying those other materials that are put out that don't require some additional restructuring.
Yeah, I would call it amplification. Commissioner Sally, by the way, welcome to the district.
Thank you.
We look at it as repurposing it, whereas the state may talk about our enrollment data in this way, we think we can attach it to a more personal story in a way that the state would not. We can point it back to a specific program that's generating an increase in enrollment or stabilization of enrollment. So we're taking that information and making it work for our audiences. So yeah, I don't want to say it's just amplifying because I'm doing something else with their information.
Got it.
To get a desired result.
Okay.
I do not see any additional hands, and we are 2 minutes over time. So I want to thank everybody for attending today's operations meeting. You all have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good day. Thank you.